Hey YouTube, Scarecrow here to do a deck profile today on my premium format Nightrose Granblue deck. Um, in terms of if you're coming from standard and trying to make this deck, good news is this is one of the better, probably like in the top third of decks you can play in premium. Maybe you could argue it's just like the quarter, but still a pretty good deck. If you have the standard stuff, you have most of the main deck. Your G-Zone can be a little pricey to build because this deck heavily uses Ultimate Stride, unlike, or not necessarily heavy, but more reliant on it than other decks. So you probably do want to pick up your Ultimate Stride. And there's a few other cards from G era you'll want to pick up to make it, but yeah, let's get started. First, our grade 3, our main grade 3 of the deck, Nightrose. You want to run her, ride her, I should say. One, if you're going first, she's a very strong card on her own. You can get a very strong turn 3 play, do multi-attacks, and span the board. Other than that, the fact that she is named Nightrose is helpful for other cards. Then we got your 4 great big beat stick dragons. It's the next best ride because it will give you a gift, but you will really miss being named Nightrose, and it doesn't do anything if you have to attack that very much or to be a little bit big. Then the last grade 3, 1 Night Storm. He's our attack extender. We can get away with just running 1 because we can just tutor him out, put him in the drop, call him. It's a good card. Moving on to the grade 2s. We got 4 of our most optimal turn 2 ride. Columbard. This card is really good. You just ride it, put anything you want into the drop, set yourself up, call a card. He's more useful, I would say, in the early game to ride. You do use him later game to like revive him in battle phase and create more attacks, but you won't use him as much later in the game as you will early. But he's so strong early game. And then we have 4 Greed Shade, an amazing card. Just get whatever you want from your drop zone. Be a decent beat stick on his own for a grade 2. Then for continuing on, we got 1 Ghost Ship. You only need 1. You can just go search it out. You're not gonna use it you'll use it often, but it's not like you need this card every turn or anything, so just 1 of it's fine. 1 Skeleton Cannoneer. Right now, you don't use this card very much. It's kind of just like in there. It's like this deck is so good at like toolboxing and picking out whatever it needs for specific situations. You might as well run him. You don't use him a ton right now, but you will be using him more once like clan selection comes out and you have like the G-Guard combo. But yeah, he's a pretty okay card. And last is 1 King Serpent. This card's just good for like resource management. You can revive it, countercharge, soul charge. If you're reviving it off Obadiah, it's big. You can attack with it, call cards over top of it, make more attacks. So that is it for the grade 2s. For grade 1s, I'm gonna start with 2 G era Negrobone and 2 V era Negrobone. So this one we're running for the more shield and the ability to like use it from drop zone to call things. The reason we are running 2 of this one though is we can actually use him after he's boosted. If you had a Nightrose Vanguard, you can counterblast and retire it's not cost to retire, so even if the card is like Denial Griffin, you could like still do a skill, but after you boost, you try to retire the card you boosted and then revive something. So he's an attack extender. He's very helpful for certain matchups. decks like Kagro or anything, there's several decks now that can like retire your stuff mid-battle phase, like while you're attacking. So for an example of why this is important, let's say you had Nightstorm and you wanted to attack with Nightstorm and then call more cards. Your opponent knows what you want to do with it, so they'll do a G-Guard combo or something and kill it. So it's not there at the end of the battle. Use its skill and revive. But you can, using things like Neverbone, team up. That way, even if he gets taken out, Neverbone can still resolve its skill. It's just good for creating more attacks. Moving on through the grade 1s, we got 1 Bale the Ghosty. This guy, when he's revived, he gets +2, and if during either player's battle phase he's put into the drop zone from the rear, you have a Nightrose Vanguard, you can put him on the bottom of the deck and countercharge. That's pretty relevant. You can do quite a few things with them. You can revive this, hit something, attack with Nightstorm, call a card on top of him, put him on the bottom, countercharge. There's a lot of cool things you can do with him. Things like, as I just said, you could like team up these two, attack, pop him, revive something, put him on drop zone, countercharge. You can like do a play like attack with him, attack with someone else, call Columbard on top of him, put him on the bottom, countercharge, use Columbard's skill, send him right back to the drop zone, revive him over here. Say you had like this over here, then you could do another attack, and there's a lot of things that this card like enables you to do. One of the G guards interacts with it pretty well. There's just a lot of cool things this card gives you. That's why we're running it, and we only need the one because, as I keep saying, this deck can tutor out whenever it wants. Then we got 2 Ripple Banshee. She's just a 10k shield, and when she revives, you can Soul Blast and draw. Everything about her is pretty good. If I had to say a complaint about her, maybe it's the fact that she doesn't kill herself. I know that might sound weird if you don't know Granblue, but that it'd almost be nicer if she could do a little bit more, like by killing herself, but it's still great for what it is. Then we got 2 Vieira Dancing Cutlass. You don't necessarily like need this card in the deck. You have other countercharge options, but the deck is so good at tutoring and getting whatever it is, you can make the room for it. And just having like an extra like countercharge resource in the deck where you can just dump these into the drop zone and get some counterblast back, like if your opponent's trying to damage deny you or whatever. Just, it's a way to give yourself just another access to countercharging. Then we got 1 Dolph the Ghosty. He's a grade 1 perfect guard. It kind of matters he's a ghosty, but not really that much. He's just in here because, as I keep saying, the deck is so good at tutoring out whatever it wants. You might as well just play the one of it. You never know when you might find that specific scenario that the grade 1 perfect guard is exactly what you need. And just Greed Shade, add it to hand. Then we got 1 Hanali. As I keep saying, you have access to like every card in this deck for basically, so might as well just run one of it just in case you come to that match where you need it. Very easy to get to. You can, even though it like can sometimes make you eat up your own counterblast, you can get that counterblast back rather easily. And if he's in your way, you can just call cards over top of him, get him out of the way. It's Granblue, it's easy to do. And then my last spot, which is a very flex spot, is Pat the Ghosty. I just needed one more grade 1 in the deck, so I'm just throwing this guy in here. Notice he's a 15k shield grade 1. And if he's in the drop zone, you can, and your Vanguard is being attacked by a Vanguard, you can use him to guard. So he's kind of like a free shield for Vanguard attacks. but you can only use them once. That is it for the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s. We have our starter. Any VR starter is the best choice to use. Keeps in soul, draws a card, can give you a quick shield. We have an extra grade 1 that's not a trigger, Grenache here. This card is expensive for what it is, but you just run it in the deck. It's your counter charge engine. This is a card you want to get into the drop zone ASAP. If you ever end up accidentally like damage checking it before you could like get into the drop zone where it's safe, you're gonna really miss this card. Very key card in the deck, but there's not really room to run more than one for safety reasons, so it is what it is. Then for the triggers, 4 crit that move the soul draw, 4 crit that let you stride, 1 vanilla crit, just because we had 1 empty spot for triggers, because one of our sentinels is in our grade 1 lineup. So for trigger choices, we're just going with another crit. Then 2 Rampage Shade, our 30k crit sentinel. I could easily see an argument to take out this, or not take out this, but just to run like a 3rd copy of it, I would say. I'm running 2. I feel okay with that. 1 Gust Gem, just another sentinel. The reason I'm running 1 grade 1 PG, 2 of these and these, most of the time you're going to use this. That's why we're running 2 of it. I'm running 1 grade 1 perfect guard and 1 grade 0, just because with Greed Shade and your ability to pick them up when you want them. I just like the idea of having like the more versatility. You never know what kind of like scenario might come up. Your opponent might have a card that blocks grade 1s from guarding, or a card that blocks grade 0s from guarding, so it just gives you the option of like being flexible. And then last, we have our 4 heal triggers. Moving on to our G-Zone. 2 Great Emperor, Big Obadiah. This is the main stride of the deck. You can go through most games, only ever see you using this card. He's just so good. Search your deck for 5 cards, put them in the drop, revive 2 cards for every face-up card in the G-Zone, and buff them. The buff gets really big. It's very, very noticeable by the time you go into the second one. You're only ever going to use this card like twice. After you've done this card like twice, you're going to be getting close to deck out, and you won't really be able to afford to dump more cards anyway. Next we got 2 of the other Obadiah. Why this guy is in here, he has a decent skill. He lets you like send cards from your deck to your drop zone without using a counterblast. You don't use this card almost ever, but there are scenarios where this could come up and you'll be glad you have it. Most of the time though, I just use it as flip fodder for Big Obadiah, but there are certain kind of scenarios where this will be helpful. Next, 2 Twilight Nightrose. Again, this card is actually a pretty good card, but it's just not as good as Big Obadiah, so you don't use it that often. But it is still a pretty good card. There are scenarios where you will want to use it. The fact that she can have a crit built into her can come up sometimes. So then we got 1 Bad Bounty. This card is pretty good. You can stride on top of Nightrose, attack with them, change back to the Nightrose, attack with rear guards, attack with Nightrose, revive things. You can do some pretty cool plays using this card, and certain matchups where your opponent's going to be restricting your ability to use rear guards, it will be helpful. It's a good card. You don't use it very often. As I said, most games all you're ever going to use is Big Obadiah, but it's good to have it there. Then we got 1 Immortal Galleon. This card is pretty good. You don't use it a ton. Like most games, you don't know, no one's ever gonna last to GB8, but it does come up every now and then, and this is a solid card to go into. Close out the game. Then we got our Balloranora, whatever this card's name is. Relatively expensive card that you're almost never going to use, but there are scenarios where you will use it. They are very, very rare, but it does exist. You do have it as an option. Then we got Megiddo. You will use this card quite often, actually. It's really good to actually have the option. This is worth picking up. You will use this. I would say the deck usually just wins using Big Obadiah. The other card you use the most is Megiddo. These are really only two cards I ever go into, so it is worth getting the Megiddo. Going to the Megiddo, reviving your like 4 Skull Dragons and a Night Storm is a very scary play. People really don't ever live through that play. If you go into that, you're probably winning the game. Then for our G-Guards, we get our 2 Negronor. This card is stupid good. You can do so much with this. Guard with her, use your skill, call Rampage Shade and like something else. That's a ton of shield already. If you need to, you can call out a Perfect Guard and then activate its skill. She's just a really good card. Then 1 Deep Corpse Dragon. This card doesn't come up a ton, but here and there you'll use it. You'll just want to guard a tiny rear guard to get some cards face up in the G zone, as well as it will let you mill a couple cards and build up your drop zone. Then we got 1 of this Cray Elemental. She guards, you ditch, you draw. As I said, sometimes you just want to block a rear guard, and this card is good for just doing that. Help optimize your hand, dig a little bit more, build up your drop zone. Sometimes there are scenarios where you just look at your hand and you're like, well, I'm just going to G-guard with this and do a draw, and hopefully I get lucky and whatever I draw will be what I need to get through the turn. So there's that use out of her as well. We got 1 Negro Mode. You don't use her a ton, but she can be helpful sometimes. She's just a really big shield. Sometimes you're not ready to use Negronor yet and you need a big shield, and that's where she comes up. And then last, Negro Lily. You're not really going to ever use this card right now. You're probably just going to use it for like flip fodder. But pretty soon, once Client Selection comes out, this card's going to be stupid good. So, yeah. That covers that. Thank you for watching.